Good morning, guys. So at this point you should have opened up Google Classroom, and first, before you opened up this video, you should have seen the handout that I gave you. It's got this cool looking bird on it, and it's got these patterns on it. So if you look over here and you look a little closer, you can see all of these little types of patterns. Artists call them Zentangles. Zentangles, Zen meaning kind of like a meditative state, and tangles is another way to talk about patterns. So this whole term Zentangles came about, and it's sort of like a relaxation, meditative kind of drawing. So what we're going to do is the next full-blown project we're going to do is we're going to make something with Zentangles, but I figured I'd give you a bit of an introduction whether you heard about them or not. So you're going to be looking at some of these patterns that you see, and you're going to replicate them in these squares here. Now, if you couldn't print this out, you can absolutely just go to your screen and refer to this picture. And you're going to need to make 9 squares. So to do that, I'm not going to use a ruler just for demonstration purposes. You can draw a 9-inch line, draw another 9-inch line, and then at 3 inches, divide it up. All right, maybe these squares are too big. There's a lot larger than the other ones. So, yeah, even if you wanted to go ahead and, let's see, hold on a second. I'm going to measure it. Okay, when I printed them out, they came out to be 1.5 inches or so. So, again, when you take your paper, I would say let's go with a line that is 5 or 6 inches. Do that. That's going to be so much better. Okay. Yeah. So that's definitely more tolerable. So in each of these spaces, you're going to be drawing these patterns. So as you look at this, you may find more than 9 patterns. I found about 9 patterns more or less, because some of the patterns they actually repeat over and over again, or repeat here, and repeat here, and repeat here, and a little bit under there. So I would like you to fill this up. So as far as the size of the pattern goes, probably, if you have this printed out, probably about the size of what you kind of see here. Don't make them too small, it's going to take you forever, but, you know, figure out a way, look at one of your patterns, and look at the way that it is drawn. You could practice in any of this paper, any of this space here. You could practice on a separate piece of paper, some notebook paper, maybe the scales over here. So these scales go on a bit of an angle, and I'm not really that worried about the angle. You can just have them going this way. So again, don't make these elements, meaning the parts that make up the pattern, too big, but also don't make them too small. So as I said, if you prefer to, or if you have to, you can put your Zentangles here, or you can put your Zentangles here. So you could see that I started with one of them. I was working off of this one right here. The elements, meaning the spaces or the shapes that make up the pattern, I have them pretty small. You know, I kind of make them about the same size as what's in the picture. In other words, you know, I started with these scales, and you don't want these scales to be too large, nor do you want them to be too small, because it's going to take you a long time if you make them too small as well. So you just want it to fill in. So Zentangle is a term, and I might have been using Zentangle and pattern in conjunction with one another, because it's really the same thing. Zentangle, Zen meaning like a meditative state, and tangle is another term for like a doodle. These Zentangles were kind of developed as an art form, but more so as a means of relaxation. So if you've ever seen those adult coloring books that have like these ornate designs and stuff, and meant for adults to just kind of chill out and color. They also have books for Zentangling, which kind of does the same thing. So if you find that you're drawing and you are kind of forgetting where you are and you're kind of getting lost in it, that is fantastic. That's what you want. Now notice when I'm doing this, I'm trying to be very precise, and you could use a pencil, so if you make a mistake, you can absolutely erase. But I'm being sort of precise. I'm making sure that the number of lines is the same here. When I make these curves, I try to keep them all consistent. So take your time with this. I am not giving you any other assignments this week. I would like you to present this to me by next Monday at the very latest. And if you do 6 of them and they're done extremely well, meaning 6 different patterns in 6 different boxes, and they're done extremely well, meaning it looks like you spent over an hour on your project or on this exercise, then you'll get full credit for it. If I see that it was done kind of scribbly, I am going to call you out on it and ask you to do it again, especially if you were working on it and you submit it today, let's say, and it doesn't look as though you really spent a long time on it. I'm going to ask you, I'll kick it back and ask you to work on it a little bit more. If you make a mistake on these 9 squares, you can absolutely go to different paper. So as you're drawing, you are trying to find sort of a rhythm in these patterns, and when they're all done, it should look pretty cool. Now this is, I might have mentioned that we are going to be using Zentangles or patterns for the next assignment next week for the 4th marking period. So you might actually, as you're drawing these and you're finding them, you might find that one or two of these Zentangles are pretty cool. You actually like them. I think one of my favorites is scales. I usually try to incorporate some sort of scales into my design. So that's pretty much what it should look like when you are done. Something kind of nice and neat. If you have areas that need to be filled in, by all means fill them in. Use a pencil. If you want to be daring and try using a pen, have at it, but I don't recommend it. But as you find these Zentangles and these little patterns, you can practice drawing them in a separate area on a separate piece of paper. But once you find a Zentangle that you think you want to attempt, again, sketch it out a little bit on a separate piece of paper, and then once you find its rhythm, you can go ahead and plug them in. I am not worried about where you put these Zentangles. You don't have to put them in any particular order. If you find 9 of them, I do want you to do 9 different squares. Each square has its own Zentangle. And if you find only 6, then I want to see 6 of them all neatly done. Now let's say that you started this and it came out awful and you want to start it again. Just deliberately put an X on it, indicating to me that this is not the one that I want to represent as my best work. So I'm looking for at least 6 really good Zentangles. I want this to look like you've been working on it for about an hour and a half. It doesn't mean that you have to do it in one sitting. If you do it 15 minutes a day, that would be fantastic. And then by Monday, you got some decent work. When you submit this, you are going to take a photo of it, whether you use your iPhone, your cell phone, or you could take a picture with your Chromebook. Just make sure it's lined up. Don't wiggle it around too much. Make sure the lighting's pretty decent. And you can submit that JPEG to me right to that assignment post. Okay? Hope you have fun with this. And like I said, it's all about doodles and finding the correct, finding some of them and applying them there in a nice, orderly fashion. Okay? Any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. I wish you an awesome week.